Hello everyone. Today we will going to present mini case of chapter 6 which is about Turkish lira and purchasing power parity. Our teammates are Chehir, Christina, Idegyu, Serena, and Yangeran. We will talk about what drives Turkish lira inflations, plot past annual exchange rate changes against the differential inflation rates between Turkey and United States for last 20 years, and regress the annual rate of exchange rate changes on the annual inflation rate differential to estimate the intercept and the slope coefficient, and interpret the regression result. And Krishna will talk about Turkish lira inflations.
Hello, my name is Christina, and I'm going to talk about the factors that are driving the Turkish lira inflation. Turkey is currently facing the situation when investors have been calling for tighter monetary policy in Turkey to tame its high inflation. The prices are rapidly rising. Right now, when the world has almost a zero inflation and is facing economical problems with COVID-19, Turkey's annual consumer prices climbing up to 15.6%. It is well known that Turkey's President Mr. Erdogan has unorthodox views. As Turkey interest rate stands at 19%, he believes that exactly this high interest rates can fuel inflation. Higher interest rates are causing a higher cost of borrowing, which at the same time deters consumers from overspending and encouraging people to save money. This often causes a slower economic growth. Meanwhile, he's following his beliefs. The country's central bank governor, Naci Akbal, who actually was replaced within the last few days, had been raising interest rates to fight an inflation, which has been running above 15%. But what is the reason for food inflation, which has jumped more than 20% per year? Maybe this was caused by the rising of oil and fertilizer prices and the dry weather, but economists are also pointing out that it was due to policy decisions, as for example the hiking import costs on some $9 billion in food. Turkey is facing high inflation rates since a few decades. What are the possible reasons? Number 1, rising interest rates. Crowding out effect, which causes higher interest rates, reduction in private investments, dampens the initial increase of total investments. Number 2, political instability. Number 3, infrastructure investments of the various governments, for example, the Southeastern Anatolian project. Number 4, high military expenditures. Number 5, increases in world prices of imported inputs, for example, crude oil. Number 6, high public sector budget deficits. Number 7, persistent inflationary expectations. And the last one, changes in exchange rates, increases in prices of imported inputs.
Hello, this is Serena Yuan, and I'm going to present our regression results. Here's the data we got from investing.com. We have 20 years of annual Turkish and US inflation rates, the differences in those two, the exchange rate between Turkish lira and US dollar, and rate of change in exchange rates. Here we plot the graph. Using the annual data from 2000 to 2019, we regress the rate of exchange rate changes, which is E right here, on the inflation rate differential, which is pi here. So if the PPP theory holds, it should look like this. We also have a hypothesis of linear regression model that looks like this. We estimate the intercept alpha and slope coefficient beta. The x-axis stands for inflation rate differentials, and y stands for the rate of Turkish lira US dollar exchange rate changes. So we did a linear regression model analysis in Excel. First, we tested for 4 assumptions of linear regression: linearity, independence, normality, and equality of variance. For linearity, we were able to plot the graph, and it shows that there's a linear relationship between two variables. You could see this right here, this line. And then second, to see if these two observed values are independent, we did the Durbin-Watson calculation. Normally, this number right here. Normally, the Durbin-Watson value is between 0 and 4. The closer it gets to 2, the higher the possibility of independence it is. So we got 2.57, which is pretty high possibility that these two variables are independent. Next, we got this, a normal probability plot. The normal probability plot of the residuals provides strong evidence that the residuals are normally distributed. The more closely the graph of the residual values resembles a straight line, the more closely the residuals are being normally distributed. Last, we have this residual plot that shows us the residuals are scattered and do not fan out in a triangular fashion. That means the equivariance assumption is also met. So after we check all the boxes that there is a linear relationship, we established, tested, and used the regression model. It can be concluded in 3 parts: summary output, ANOVA, analysis of variance, and coefficients. So for the first part, summary output, we should pay attention to this number, multiple R. It means it is the correlation coefficient that measures the strength of the linear relationship between two variables that can be from -1 to 1. 0.65 is not a very strong positive relationship. R squared is the coefficient of determination that indicates the goodness of fit. In our data, it means only 41.65% of the exchange rate changes can be explained by inflation rate differentials. So second part, ANOVA. For this part, we mainly focus on the last column, significance F. This value gives an idea of how reliable the results are. If the significance F is less than 5%, the model is statistically significant and okay. We got 0.2%, so that's fine. And lastly, the coefficients. This section provides specific information about the components of the analysis. The most important two components is coefficients, which is these two numbers, intercept and slope coefficient. This enables us to build a linear regression equation right here. This means when there is a change in 1% inflation, change in exchange rate is 1.42. So our conclusion is the data of the inflation rate differentials and the changes in foreign exchange rate of Turkey and the US meet all assumptions for linear relationship, and we are able to estimate the model parameters and establish a regression model. In a word, we cannot reject the hypothesis that there is a linear relationship. An insignificant variable of inflation rate differentials does exist and have influence on the FX rate. Thus, the results are supportive of the purchasing power parity theory.
Thank you, Serena. And next, I'm Yaran, and I will wrap up the presentation by revising and forecasting the expected results. According to the former interpretation of the regression results, we can say that the purchasing power parity does hold for the Turkish lira to US dollar exchange rate, since there is a linear relationship in the model. Purchasing power parity is related to the changes in the nominal exchange rates, which could also cause changes in the real exchange rates. This will affect the competitive position of Turkey, its lira, and trade balances in the international market. However, the regression model and the purchasing power parity cannot be an exact standard for future forecasting since there are many other factors involved. Real-life factors such as trade barriers, transportation costs, and other political and social events explained in the very beginning of the presentation could also affect the future outcome. Therefore, future forecasting cannot be evident. So, that was the end of our presentation, and thank you all for listening.